On the plus side, pickled meal is going to stay fresh for a very long time. Also, I guess out here is actually CO2, so I don't need to worry too much about it being pumped inside, but I do kind of want it to be pushed in there if I can. Got so many jobs for people to do right now. Right, okay, so all of that's done. Uh-oh. Ah, yeah, food shortage. Yeah, this is true. There's a part of me that's really tempted to take out the pips. Got a pip bag there. Okay. The future generation is secure. Sorry, pips. Ah, it hurts so much to do this, but I need the food so badly. No, 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 we don't kill the shrine bugs. That is unnecessary and cruel. What? Oh, there's a hatch underground. Need the food. Sorry, peeps. Fresh, delicious, glorious meat. We will weep as we devour it. It'll be pinchy all over again. Yep, rocks can be very, very pretty if you properly polish them. Very, very pretty. You don't need to be precious gems. Not even remotely. I'm concerned about that. It's flickering in and out of it being a sterile environment. It's quite worrying. Oh, you absolutely need to be moved. You are worth way too much to me for me to leave on the ground like that. Right, now that this is made though, I can set this to 9. All sweep only. Now it'll only grab sweep tasks. Let's do that. And it can't take food. So the 9 priority on the food down here won't be affected by it. Everything else will be mine, but actually, yeah, we should absolutely cancel that and just very carefully select the food. Barbecue, sweep, 9. And then over here, pickled meal, sweep 9. Cosmos, thank you very much for the Twitch Prime sub there, mate. Really appreciate it. Diolch. No, I shouldn't need a door. Well, I mean, realistically, this just maintains this as part of a room. A smaller room. That's all that does for me. Right now, the O2 is building up in pressure quite a lot. The hydrogen is being compressed, and that means these aren't producing as much. I believe that they will generally lose out on the production of hydrogen more than oxygen, though, if there isn't enough room, like due to gas pressures. Right, let's have a bit of a gander at what we can plant. Mirth leaves. We got a lot of mirth leaves. They can survive in pretty high temperatures, so sure. Let's get those planted. Little by little, these little spots are starting to look really nice. Wow. The Force. Your clothes are so awful. They add a negative to the decor of the room. Man. But, look at that. Plus 24 for a genius sculpture. Having these made because we took our time and got is it where go-tos are artists? Yeah, where goats art skills all the way up. They're making absolutely amazing sculptures. Blank canvas, large sculpting block. Thank you. You're now working on the metal block and the landscape canvas. The metal block requires, I believe, refined metals. I could be wrong about that, though. Well, the large sculpting block is immediately going to replace all these things. I shouldn't have bothered building them, really. Well. We'll see how it goes. Ultimately, if you can get over to the marble block here, that's a really nice one. In fact, we will go as far as that, if we are able to. How are the liquids going? Not amazingly. Every time we get a little bit of polluted water down here, it gets converted into breathable oxygen and hydrogen as well. Which is fine for now. It works for now. Won't work forever, though. And every now and then the ice will melt as well. Temperatures are being controlled, but only barely. Now, popping a bit of that excess hydrogen into a Draco farm would be a good move. It would definitely be a good move. Now the thing with the Draco farm, we don't actually need it to be a big deal. Can I grab the sedimentary rock? There's 28.9 tons of sedimentary rock there. Good enough for me, I would say, but let's just grab that last little bit. Once that's done, then all of this can be a fairly low priority. In fact, all of it can be 5s. We can just leave that there and then just have them haul massive amounts of sedimentary rock around. Kind of would like it if you would get this done a bit faster, though, because that could burn out and then it would shut down all of my oxygen production, which is a bit rough. Really want you. This is how they groom. Gotta brush their teeth a bit. Brush their fur. Gotta perfume them. Gotta gently soothe them. There you go. Perfect. Hiya, Punky Rooster. How you doing, mate? For those wondering about the hatches, because I did make a point of reading out the Puffs earlier, and I have read out the Shinebugs previously as well. Hatches. The hatch has no eyes and is completely blind, although a photosensitive patch atop its head is capable of detecting even minor changes in overhead light, making it prefer dark caves and tunnels. When attempting to pet a hatch, inexperienced handlers make the mistake of reaching out too quickly for the creature's head. This triggers a fear response in the hatch, as its photosensitive patch of skin, called the paracial eye, interprets this sudden light change as an incoming aerial predator. It is difficult to classify the hatch's diet, as the term omnivore does not extend to the non-organic materials it is capable of ingesting. A more appropriate term is tutumvore, given that it can consume and find nutritional value in nearly every known substance. The proper way to pet a hatch is to touch any of its 4 feet to first make it aware of your presence. Then, either scratch the soft, segmented underbelly or firmly pat the creature's thick, chitinous back. There you have it. The hatch. Gotta sing them a little lullaby. Yeah, that would work, Sheila. I'm sure it would. So much CO2. On the plus side, food not gonna rot. At all forever. Wish some of that CO2 was over there. Like, wow. We've gotten the excellent fruit. Actually, no, we haven't. Let me grab that then. Is there any excellent fruit down here? No. Anything else down here at all worth me getting? No, it doesn't look like it. Well, we've still seen a couple of the really nice nice events around. Alright, I'm going to turn this off so we're no longer trying to sweep things over here. And it is now time to sweep the sedimentary rock with a high priority. This way, it should be brought over here because this is the only place set to store sedimentary rock at a high priority, which is a 7. This can hold 2 tons, and this can hold 20 tons. Once all of that is brought over, then it should be very easy for my my dupes to refill it. Now, eventually, I want to automate that, but for now, that's not the goal. Or at least, it's not a goal that's realistically worth pursuing. Okay. Have a little look in here. We haven't got many germs. There are some food poisoning germs in the air, though, here and there, which isn't great, but it's not actually going to make anyone sick. It has to be on their food to affect them. If it isn't on the food, then it doesn't count. Now, I would very much like to pop down a park sign. Where would that be? Utilities and furniture? Yes, there we go. Pop that little park sign there. And we're going to pop a little door over here. Deconstruct that, deconstruct this. We're managing food, but not by much. Not by much at all, actually. We need somewhere we can grow this food, but everywhere is hot. Except in here, technically. It's not exactly an efficient way of farming. It's quite far away from whatever we'd need. But it would work until we got our hatch farm up and running. I could just pop a bunch of... actually, it's kind of cold. I could pop a bunch of mealwood. Let me have a look if they can tolerate the cold. No. No, they absolutely cannot tolerate that kind of cold. Balls. Okay, cancel that then. The transition between cold and hot is really rather sudden, though. We would need another icy fan, I guess. Pain. Either that or a cooling system over there. If we ran some pipes up here with polluted water in them, for example, just to shed some of the heat, and then back down to cool another area, it's a possibility, I guess, but... for now, though, we need a little bit more copper ore. I am strongly considering doing the silly thing of getting another duplicant, though, just to have a bit more manpower. Because right now we're having to use so much manpower on doing so many other things. What is your cooking skill at? Cuisine is at 5. Which just means that you're a little bit faster at cooking, basically. There we go. We've got all of the necessary components over here. I'm actually going to set this up at the 7 sweep order. Let's just clear this area up a bit. In fact, let's do that over here as well. Let's just clear this whole hatchery up a bit. It depends a little bit. The water on top of farm tiles, it depends what you're trying to grow. Whether that will stop them or not. Some things it'll work quite happily. And I'm thinking of doing something very similar to what we've got for the hatches, but for the Dracos. However, the Dracos we can afford to manage in a slightly different way. With the Dracos, we don't technically need... Like, we can have a breeding ranch for the Dracos, powered by the power spine we've got. That's a lot smaller than normal. That would then... And it would be in an oxygenated room. That would be where we would handle the Dracos and groom them, etc., etc. However, we could then have the Dracos... Once we have an egg deposited into a nearby room where they've got a hydrogen atmosphere. Like immediately moved from one room to the next. And in that room we have the shearer, where we can just deal with their scales. There's a couple of ways of dealing with Dracos, which doesn't involve a lot of labor. One of the main ones is you can just have their scales when they're young. When a Draclet is born, it's got a full set of scales. When it becomes an adult, you can shear it for the first time. And sometimes, some people will manage a Draco farm by, it's like, okay, you shear it once, and then you put them into a starvation chamber and just leave them until they die, and then you collect their meat. You get one shearing off each Draco. Another way of doing it is to have a shearing station in the starvation room and fill that starvation room with hydrogen. That way their scales will keep regrowing, and because as they move into starvation, they'll stop producing as much phosphorite, because as they starve, their metabolism slows, so that they stop producing their primary resource, which for a Draco is phosphorite. It's not their scales. Shearing them is just secondary. Their scales will still regrow at a reasonable pace. And because when they're born, they start life with like a full stomach, they can last for quite some time off that. Now, as a direct result of that, you can get about 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 shearings off a Draco before it starves as an adult. And then, of course, you've got the option of just keeping the Draco and just honestly just trying to care for it. They live for about 150 cycles. That's their maximum age. And in that time, if you take care of them, if they're well groomed, if they're happy, they will have several offspring. Oh, did I set the storage? Oh, damn. Yeah, I did. Thank you, Sankiri. That was not my intention, no. I meant to sweep the room at a priority 7. Thank you, buddy. Where would I be without you? Right, so basically, at this point, I want to dump everything. Copy that. Over all of these, womp. Then grab this one again and go back through and set everything up again. My bad. Bleachstone? Nope. Critter egg? Never. I think there's no liquefiables ever. And organic, we turn off everything but the eggs. The eggshells, rather. There we go. That should take care of all of that. Then I can go back and do another sweep on a priority 7. Thank you, Sangiri. Oh, take care, Lady Keatlina. For once, Twitch isn't being twitching on my end. Please be nice to Dracos. Justice for Dracos! I tend to... I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I have played around with the automation just to see what I could do, and I felt horrible for it, as I hope everyone does who does any kind of starvation ranching. But generally speaking, I tend to opt for less efficient systems that try to take care of them. You will always end up with excess livestock. That's just the way it goes. If you want to get the most calories out of your livestock, you kill them as once they've hatched, because you will get more calories out of the meat being turned into barbecue than you'll get out of the egg being turned into omelette. That's the way that one goes. You can happily, in fact, you can really happily survive on ranching. You don't have to try hard. It's more labor intensive for your duplicants, and it's much harder for them to learn to be better ranchers. Because this, I don't know why, but the only way that their skill improves with ranching is when they lullaby an egg in an incubator. And realistically, you're talking thousands and thousands of cycles to get a rancher to get a particularly high skill as a result of that. Yeah, starvation ranching is kind of similar to culling yearlings in real life. Yeah, Angela's father. Pretty much. I've left room here for an incubator to be able to handle this. But yeah, there's lots of different ways you can deal with handling eggs. If you just want to just deal with omelettes, you can just store the egg in a storage container and wait for it to basically become unviable, which will cause it to automatically crack and become raw egg, which you can then cook. Or you can send it to an egg cracker and have someone crack the egg and get the raw egg. If you let it incubate, though, it becomes a critter. And at that point, if you want to kill it, you have to give a combat order. And some critters are much, much better at fighting than your peeps are. Oh, there is meat there. There is meat. And I want that meat right now. Please grab. But yeah, like a stone hatch, for example, will probably give you a run for your money. If you're, well, I actually doubt your dupe would lose, but it would hurt your duplicant a lot if it was just one-on-one. A smooth hatch, basically a hatch that eats metal, would wreck a duplicant. However, in terms of, I mean, some of them offer no resistance at all. Dracos, if you were going to farm Dracos by actually killing them by hand, it would be awkward, because if you make a large enough stable, they're just going to be out of reach most of the time. Same with Puffs, they'll just fly away. the easiest way of dealing with critters is by far and away to pop the egg into water, wait for it to hatch in the water. It will immediately start drowning in the water, and a few moments later it will become meat, and then collect the meat at that point. That's by far and away the easiest way of farm any critter for barbecue, which is probably the most calorie dense food stuff you can make out of critter. Can you gas them to death? No. Most critters don't actually breathe. Like, they can exist in any atmosphere. You can boil them to death. And I believe you can freeze them to death. But you can't gas them. No. I don't think anything like that would affect them. I'd really like to seal off this place, so if we could get that done, that would be great. If I recall, you can drown them in water, though, Aavak, or you could. Yeah, they don't, when I say they don't breathe, I mean they don't breathe a specific thing. I don't know if they actually respire at all. Whether they, like, you know, take in a certain gas and then expel another gas. Except for puffs, but that's more or less them eating, though. But, if you hatch them in water, they will start drowning. So the ones that can walk on walls, or can fly, or can float, like the slicksters, will simply escape fate. Unless you seal them into a room full of water, then they'll drown. They can't stay submerged. Nothing in the game that I'm aware of can survive fully submerged. They'll all die eventually. Yeah, there are fish. That's actually a good point. I was saying there that there's nothing can survive in water, but yeah, the pacu absolutely can. In fact, again, though, the pacu don't suffocate out of water. They're an interesting one. Pacu are very, very easily farmed. Very easily farmed, because unlike most animals, they've got a very short lifespan. And again, especially if it's kind of like starvation farming, they will die very quickly in the water. And I think a lot of people will run pacu ranches because it is generally a pretty solid source of food. Oh, a wrangled critter can't fight back. I didn't know that. I've not really looked into that. Right. At this point, I kind of want to shunt all of this across. Actually, do I want to move it one more? It's kind of late now if I do. If I've got this here, a shower, toilet, Toilet's edge would be about there. We can have one space and maybe a plant or something. Yeah, I brought this out just one too far. Oh, damn it. Just cancel that there. There we go. Weird games that add ranching without a proper way of slaughtering. I think the idea is largely that well, I mean, no, you're right. Because although critters can give you access to pretty much most of the game's higher-end materials without having to build refining factories for it. For example, a hatch gives you access to coal. A Draco gives you access to fiber. A Sage hatch, well, actually all hatches give you access to coal, except for a Smooth hatch, which gives you access to refined metal if you feed it raw ore. A Draco will give you access to fiber, the equivalent of reed fiber. A Glossy Draco will give you access to plastic. A Slickster will give you access to crude oil. A Molten Slickster will give you access to petroleum. A Puffed will give you access to slime. A Squeaky Puffed will give you access to bleach stone. A Dense Puffed will give you access to oxalite. What other critters are there? Paku is literally just meat. It gives you... Oh, well, actually, no. Paku converts polluted water into clean water. Or rather, what is it? One of the Paku variants gives that. The others just look nice and you can eat them. Gulpfish. That's the one. The Gulpfish can turn polluted water into clean water. Shine bugs are just beautiful. They are just beautiful and produce light. But light without the cost of electricity, and light that you can absolutely use to farm plants that require light. Other than that, poke shells produce access to poke molts. So the shell molts, which is effectively you can use it in the same way you use eggshell to get lime, which you would use for steel. They don't give you steel, but you know, that would be ridiculous OP if they do. Shove voles give you the ability to turn resources like mined dirt or something back into a natural dirt tile. But other than that, very few people actually use them for that purpose. Most people just... most people will instead just kill them and use them as a particularly hefty food source. There we are. Outside of shovels, what's the next one? Are there any others?